I'm going to call the July DAB meeting to order. We can really make it when it's but we did. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We received the agenda that we wrote last week. There are motion to read the agenda. Make a motion. We also have the minutes. Everyone had time to review that. Your motion to approve last month. Is there a second? Sorry. Are we going to get started with staff reports? We have fire up first.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Bowen. Been with the city of Wichita, working on for 33 years. Love it. Feel like coming to work. Not very many professions you can say that. I have a handout out on the back table, and each of the DAB board members have it also. A breakdown for Wichita Fire Department, and it has a lot of information in there. I'll hit on some of the highlights. Of course, the big thing in this fireworks enforcement, which we partnered with WPD on that as we have in past years. Has some fire safety tips in there also. The enforcement period ran from June 27 to July 6. There's varying numbers of enforcement teams on the streets, depending on the day, with the heaviest coverage being on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, with up to 10 enforcement teams out on those days. Operations, all the firehouses, they'll be out patrolling on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and coordinating with the enforcement teams. Other data in here has all the FIU fire investigators, recent fires for May and June. It's been really busy. They're coordinating with some other agencies and working on some things. Currently, about page 4 or 5 has a breakdown on where the fires were and they were investigated. This is just a fraction of the fires in our city. What happens if it's obvious? And the company offer, which many of them have origin cause training. If we determine what it is, we won't call the investigators out. They'll document it, take pictures, and resolve it. So, as I said, that's just a fraction of it. So every single time I come to do a DAB meeting or a presentation, I always provide a close before you doze fact sheet. And essentially what this is one thing you can do is really simple that you can help protect your family and give them a better chance of survival if their home gets on fire. And essentially all it is closing the door, isolating your bedroom from the rest of the structure. A simple closed door, a hollow core door, they've done all kinds of testing, can last 10 to 15 minutes with direct flame impingement. It could be solid fire on this side of the door. That closed door, you have tenable conditions with temperatures less than 100, no smoke conditions or limited smoke conditions. And what that does, it's a little bit different than the message we had done in the past. If your home is on fire, we want you, obviously, if you can escape your normal routes, that's fine. But if you go to your door and you have any type of smoke or heat at that door, keep the door closed because you're isolated from that fire. Your fire department, we train all our members to do targeted searches. So if the normal way into your home is blocked by fire, we're going to be going and we're going to be searching the bedrooms and we're going to be coming in windows, whether it's a 2nd floor or if it's an apartment building, if it's 3rd floor or higher. We will reach you and we'll do a targeted search. So again, that close before you doze it's a national campaign. We adopted it locally about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's worth your time to browse over that. If you have any questions, our community risk reduction division is always willing to take calls. Phone numbers on the bottom of that. Follow-up safety message. We stress that working smoke detectors, check them monthly. If they're battery operated, we recommend changing batteries bi-yearly. So time changes, fall and spring, change your batteries, but check them every single month. Wichita Fire Department has a program that if you're unable to get smoke detectors or install them, we have a program where you can contact us. We'll provide the smoke detectors. We'll install them because it's vital to save you and your family's lives. Any questions? Be happy to answer. Yes.
With the new fireworks ordinance, are you anticipating that it's gonna really benefit the department this year?
I think with the ordinance, with the defined limits, it was prolific in years past before they were legal. Yes, it's prolific last year, but having a set period of time, I think it's gonna be safer. With the enforcement, we've never had this amount of enforcement available. It's never started, it started 7 days before the 4th of July. It's ramped up. These officers can attest to it. We're gonna have 10 teams out on the 4th of July. We're gonna have 10 teams out, I believe, on the 3rd also. So gonna be a ton of coverage. Total, there's gonna be 52 teams over that enforcement period. So, we're gonna coordinate it, and I think we're gonna see better enforcement of it. Sorry about that. Any other questions?
When do the enforcement teams stop? I mean, are they gonna be out this next weekend as well? Because a lot of people
So
fired them off.
right now, they're scheduled through the 7th, I believe. And I believe it has that.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said the 6th. Okay. But the hotline only goes to the 6th as well?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, you said the 6th.
Now, my information here says we have enforcement teams just through July 6th. There'll be 7 teams on July 6th. On the 4th and 5th, we'll have 10 teams.
Questions from staff? Any questions from the public? There's none. Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
PD. Hello, everyone. I'm Officer Tyler Cowles. I work for the Patrol South Bureau. That more obviously splits half out the West Bureau. Not going to echo any more on the fireworks side of things. I think you did a great job covering it. Based off of last year's experience, the only thing I'm going to say is, as well as that midnight cutoff line, we saw a lot of really great results. I think it's when we allowed them and made it all right to shoot the fireworks off, they were more compliant actually. So I'm hoping, I'm curious to see what the results are this year. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Officer Perkins and I did the cyber attack. We're still struggling on statistics. Words are hard today. From crime analysts, it's one of the things that was hit on the cyber attacks. We're still struggling. So we don't have statistics to be able to report on that. We don't have a time frame on that. Have you heard anything? So I don't have any. I usually like to bring percentages and talk some crime trends, things going up or down, and be aware of. But the one thing I am going to touch as far as the south side goes there are increase in burglaries to storage units, mainly along what we have found are the units that are leaving gates open or having people that are lackadaisical on keeping the gates open. We were having it's just free for them to be able to walk in. There's no gate to prevent them. So we're trying to work with the ownership to get broken gates or quicker closing gates to help kind of cover it. Another thing on our department, I am wearing the new Axon camera. I'm not sure if they've done a broadcast about it. Officer Perkins is still wearing the old one over there. These are going to be body mount. There are going to be options still for some head mounts like he's wearing. One of the biggest issues I think we're transitioning from is on those with the cord, they could snap if there was some type of physical altercation. They can unplug, those cords are brittle, they could also break. This one, although it's a body mount, has a wider angle than what that camera is, and the audio is also better. So you will start to see officers no longer wearing the head. Personally, I like that. It gave me really bad acne and headaches having that halo there all the time. So I'm happy about this. But the South Bureau is the first one to start getting these body mounts, and you're going to start seeing these body mounts on probably most of the market. So wanted to touch base on that. Then in July here, we had 6 CSOs graduating citywide. Those are our community service officers. Those are the ones that typically handle abandoned vehicle complaints, car accidents, to try to speed up some of these 911 calls, the non-priority one type calls. So I don't know the distribution where they all went, but there's 6 for the city, 4 bureaus. So we'll see what amount. And then additionally here in the middle, is it July 17th, somewhere around there, I think, 29 recruits. Around there. 29 recruits from the academy will graduate into FTO, and they will then go into 4 months riding with a field training officer before they're out on their own. Right after they graduate, the following Monday, July 22nd, 38 more individuals will start the academy. That's all I have on the south side to report. So questions that I can answer about the South Bureau.
How does the number of recruits you just mentioned help with the gap that there wasn't a need?
So I don't know the exact number. I personally, and just because I like to keep track for myself right now, I keep track of how many officers that either retire every year. These 29 that are coming in will put us plus 10 for the year. Say halfway through the year. If you go strictly by time frames, these next 38 technically graduate until next year in 2024. So they put us plus 10 for the year. Based off of past history, we're going to lose 10 officers before the end of 2024. So, we'll see. Ask that question back in December. I'll let you know.
Questions from staff? Public?
Tyler Cass. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Like Tyler said, I'm Officer Perkins. I'm in the Patrol West Bureau. I'm gonna go start out just first our next second chance Thursday. If everybody's not aware, it's basically just a warrant clearing type special assignment. People come in, we can clear some certain types of warrants for them. We used to hold that monthly, then it goes to every 3 months now. It's gonna be on Thursday, July 11th at Colvin Elementary School at 2820 South Roosevelt, and that's gonna be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The last one we had was up at the Brewer Center, and it was very much overwhelming, the amount of warrants that we cleared. It was well over 150 from memory. But something that these people that have these warrants can get this kind of off their plate, don't have to be worrying about every time they're stopped or contacted or anything else like that. If it's armed robbery or something else like that, they still go to jail. This is not a, hey, come here because you want a toaster and we take you to jail. That's not what the purpose of that, because we're really gonna lose our face to the community if we tell them this is, come in here and we can clear these types of warrants, and then we can start taking people to jail. So instead of taking them to jail, we clear that. We have courts right there. We have driver's license bureau right there. If they want to pay their fine, we've had several people that have just walked right over and I owe this amount and I want to pay that because just because it's clear doesn't mean it's paid off. So that is, if you have anybody that has a warrant that's traffic, parking, something like that, petty theft or something like that, send them out there on July 11th. We have a traffic complaint, 9600 West Yosemite. We're working that pretty heavy. We are going to be putting out the radar trailer. We in the department, we also have something that's called a stealth stat. Basically, it's just a little box we can put up kind of incognito. When we have some traffic complaints that come from citizens council, we put that up. And then we also have the big radar trailer that says your speed is this. And we chose that in the Pawnee and 119th area. We're going to put the radar trailer out there here before too long. Could be near 135th, but either way, it's going to be on Pawnee, near 119th or Mace. Of course, right here, no crime stats still since May 21st. We are gonna be doing an upcoming special assignment in reference to the West Kellogg hotels, motels. That will always be the thorn in the side for the Patrol West Bureau now. We're not gonna go into what that special assignment's going to be, but we are going to be doing some enforcement out there here in the near future. We spent some time in the Delano area on some golf cart patrolling a while back. One of our officers wrecked the golf cart, so, but it still works, but a wreck's a wreck. And we're gonna be doing that more, weather permitting, something I don't think anybody wants to be out there when it's 105 degrees. And we're also gonna spend some time in Pawnee Prairie Park, on our Patrol West ATV, in the park. One, we're gonna be mapping, how to get from the east side of the river to the west side of the river for the creek or river that runs through there. We've been out there several times. At least one time a year, somebody goes walking in Pawnee Prairie Park and somehow gets lost. And they actually call 911, so we have to go in there and find them. I think with the drone unit, that's gonna be much easier now, but that's kind of our go-to also, is we have an ATV that's specifically for stuff like that. We've also been working pedestrian violations on Kellogg. If anybody ever uses Kellogg, Dugan-ish area, I'm just gonna say, pick that as a lane. I'm sure anybody's ever been up on Kellogg, they've seen people trying to cross Kellogg from the hotels to Walmart or vice versa. We're actively up there stopping that. That is illegal. Seems pretty probably common sense to us that you could just walk down to Dugan and cross underneath it. We're gonna be doing more of that in the future, and the panhandling that's in the area. And even though it's in Patrol South and a little bit of Patrol East, I got it on here. Automobile is gonna be Saturday, July 13th from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. from Washington to Grove. I'm more putting that out there just to know that Douglas is gonna be closed on that day from that time. So if you're gonna be in that area at that time, be aware that all those northbound streets are gonna be shut down to traffic. So find an alternate route. Anybody have any questions, concerns? Yes.
Later, early August, didn't they change the date?
It used to be late July, it's now early August.
So I just looked it up today on my phone before I came up here. Over there, it still says July 13th.
No, I think they moved it to early
Okay.
August.
Well, in early August.
It's August 3rd, if I recall.
Never it is.
Okay.
Is there any word yet? And I saw some stuff the other day on this about ticketing these homeless people sleeping.
That's a Supreme Court decision, like Grants Pass versus, I don't know. That hasn't come down
Right.
to us yet, and I don't, as a city, I mean, I really can't speak for it, but I can just tell you that Supreme Court decision is so fresh that every city, municipality, state, whatever, is gonna have to determine how that is going to affect them.
I'll give it, we're talking about it on the council tomorrow too.
So, yeah, from a police department standpoint, way too new to decide what, if any, we're gonna change on enforcement or
From a citizen.
assistance
From a
standpoint.
citizen standpoint, you guys got much bigger fish to fry, okay? I know we gotta do something about it, but you guys got much bigger fish to fry than waking up some guy that's asleep.
All right? Thank you.
Library.
Hello, I'm Lena Vogt. I'm the children's librarian here at Alfred. Steve, the branch manager, had to go cover at another branch at Walters. So you guys got me again. Our attendance for June is 4,785. Our circulation of items checked out was 6,335. This summer, we're partnering with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra for a series of story times and small concerts. They're giving out free books to every family that goes. That's really cool. And we've had them at several of the branches. I got to do it at Walters, but they're going to be at Advanced Learning Library July 15th, here at Alfred July 16th, and Angelo July 26th. And the program's recommended for kids ages 4 to 8, but everybody, like even teens and adults, really loved it. Like They went through each instrument and played the same song to hear the difference, and they got to touch it and try it and play the drums, and it was really cool. And they're having different symphony members at each of the events, so some people are like following around the programs to go to all of them because they're so fun. The Wichita Public Library locations will be closed on Thursday, July 4th in observance of Independence Day. Not only is this a presidential election year, there are several state and local elections residents should be aware of. The library added a Become an Informed Voter page on the website, wichitalibrary.org, that provides candidate and voting information for each type of election. And then Alfred, right here, is a new polling place. We'll be having primary here August 6th, and then the general election November 5th. And the summer reading program for all ages continues until August 1st. People can come in now and get their prizes if they hit their reading goal. We have great scheduled programs, family concerts, that's all online, or we have paper copies out there. wichitalibrary.org/summer reading, and it's for pre-readers, teens, and adults encouraged to begin their summer reading adventure at the library. It's not too late to sign up. And then Local Author Day is back on Saturday, August 10th, beginning Monday, July 8th. Local authors can register to participate in the Author Expo. And it's a unique event. We've had it for a few years, and we have like hundreds of local authors. So sign up usually fills up, and they can showcase their work, visit with readers, they can sell their books, and then there's usually like a panel, and then you can visit like all the different booths and their books and stuff. And then we have some monthly displays. We have a fairy tale display. The adventure begins in our library, still like kind of popular and interest stuff, and then like activity books that kids can do. And then there's like in the adult section, like adult fairy tale retellings, which like romance and fantasy is also very popular right now. So it's kind of all ages, different themes. And then Jamie, the director, asked me to talk a little bit about our branch remodel. We had a meeting with staff, and I'm sorry, this is like, nobody can see this, but they gave this to me. Of sort of the preliminary plans of changes that we're gonna make. It's not gonna be gutted like Westlake, but we are adding some new like meeting rooms and study spaces, which is like really in demand at this location. And we met with Hutton, the architects, to get staff feedback, and talked about the different, like our workflow. And then they're also so after having the staff input, they're going to be gathering community input beginning in mid-July. And Jamie said she would make sure that you guys have info, and then they're also open to coming to speak with neighborhood groups. So I have some of Jamie's business cards if anybody has like a neighborhood group that they want to talk about the library remodel. And I think just one change. They're asking, do you like the look of where we're headed, and what should be happening at the library to keep your interest? So those were kind of the general questions, and we'll have the plan. I think not this one, but like a plan after they go back and incorporate into some of the stuff at our meeting that we had last week, on easels here, and then at the South YMCA to try to get even more community feedback. And she said to tell everybody if you have neighborhood groups that want to hear about it too. But the added study rooms, we have a lot of people that come and like do group work, like group classwork together. And then we have tutors that come and work with kids here. And then also groups like Bible studies and tabletop gaming. And we have 2 meeting rooms, study rooms like this, and then 2 out in the main part. And they're like a mad race and they fill up because they're first come, first serve. So people like make a beeline. So we're adding a lot more of those. We're expanding the teen area, making it more customized to teen interests and like a kind of safe, fun space to hang out. There's gonna be more self-checks, changing the lighting, changing the paint, and then making the children's area more engaging, more furniture that people can read together, and then more flexible to like move stuff around to have programs and early literacy activities. That's everything I'm supposed to say. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
All right, moving on to the public agenda. Seeing that there's no scheduled items, moving on to the off-agenda items. If there's anyone present here that did not request to speak before the meeting, may speak at this time. Nobody. Moving on to new business, we have PUD 2024-12.
Good evening, my name is Philip Ziebenberg and I'm with Metropolitan Area Planning Department. Tonight you have a zone change before you, located at 1215 West Dayton Avenue. As you can see on the picture on the front, it's basically southwest of Kellogg and Seneca. Property is currently zoned MF29 multifamily. And the purpose of the zone change is to create a custom zoning classification called a planned unit development. All planned unit developments within the city don't look the same. So even though it's a zoning classification, the whole point of that is they kind of get to write their own zoning, and they're usually used for specific and very unique situations to where a single zoning classification doesn't necessarily fit with what they're trying to do. Whether it's a combination of different types of uses that kind of span multiple zoning classifications, or in this case, they're really looking to have custom development standards like building setbacks or parking, or kind of a combination thereof, where the density that they're looking for with kind of a mixture of single family and multifamily dwellings on essentially a single city lot is allowed within the MF29 district as a multifamily. But in order to accomplish it, number one, the building that is currently on the site is not conforming based on the current zoning standard. So it was built before current zoning existed. The zoning was there at the time, but they probably just had different rules. So then the zoning changed at some point in time and essentially made this building non-conforming. What that means is if the current building were to be damaged or destroyed, they would not be able to build it back in its current position because it would be too close to a street or too close to another building or something like that. So number one, it's bringing the existing building into conformance because they actually want to use that building. If you look on the aerial map, which is page 8, you can see that the building is kind of closer to the alley, and you have the whole space closer to Martinson that's open. What they're looking at doing in the PUD is
Was the house is not conforming as well, or just the shed?
my understanding, the house and the shed are non-conforming based on setbacks. Definitely the shed. The existing house may be conforming, but the shed definitely is not conforming because it's right on the property line. And anyway, so what you have on the PUD drawing is the existing buildings are here on the eastern half of the property, labeled as parcel 2. We're looking to divide the property into 2 separate parcels. So you have one zoning lot right now, and you can actually kind of separate it into 2. It could be for separate ownership, it could be under one ownership. It really doesn't matter. What it allowed them to do is build an additional building, an additional dwelling on parcel 1 closer to Martinson, whether it's a single family dwelling, duplex, or a multifamily situation. They would be able to add additional dwellings onto the site and really utilize the site more than what it can be utilized for now. In order to do that, they're going to the PUD because when you're adding that extra building, when you have to adhere to the multifamily MF29 setbacks, you're not going to get the building that they're looking to do. Again, the density they're looking for would be allowed in the multifamily, so they're not trying to overpopulate a small site. It's just allowing them to build an additional building and really utilize the site more efficiently than scraping the site and kind of starting over, because they want to use the existing building and they just want to add another one. In order to do that, they would have to go through like 3 or 4 different variances, which are asking for exceptions to the rule. But at that point, you might as well do a PUD and accomplish the same thing. So in general, that's what they're trying to accomplish. They want to use the existing building and add a new building. The PUD on page 2, there's a table that kind of identifies what are the current setbacks now, what would be the setbacks on parcel 1. So again, that's closest to Martinson, and then what the setbacks would be on the second parcel, which is where the existing house is closer to the alley. And so there's some slight variation. MF29 requires a 25-foot front setback. So from Martinson, any building would have to be set back 25 feet from the property line. They're looking to reduce that to 20. That's something that actually could be done administratively if they were to build without a zone change. Rear setback is 20. They're looking at going at 8 feet. That's probably the biggest reduction. So the new building they want to build it would have to be 8 feet from their parcel boundary, or it would have to be 20 feet from their parcel boundary. So if it was 20 feet from Martinston and 20 feet from the back, you all of a sudden lose all ability really to build any size of the building on there. So they're essentially looking to have that new building much closer to the eastern portion of the property at an 8-foot setback as opposed to a 20-foot setback. And then a street side setback that would be along Dayton. They're looking at a 5-foot reduction, but for example, in like a 2-family residential zoning, you have a 15-foot street side setback, and that's what they're looking to do as well. So really, there's not a major difference other than that rear setback, but that rear setback is really between the 2 parcels that they own. And that just means the buildings are to be closer together. They have to meet fire code when it comes to building separation, so there's not necessarily any issue there. It may just require maybe a firewall or something, when it comes to how far the buildings are separated, but that'll be handled in permits. The one thing I wanted to bring up is the original PUD text when they submitted, it talked about parking meeting the standards of the Unified Zoning Code, which sound really well and good. But when you look at multifamily residential, it starts requiring more parking per dwelling unit based on the number of bedrooms, which then all of a sudden you have to start using more of the site for parking than you do for building these, or you start having parking lots in front of a building along a residential street, and that just doesn't necessarily look as appealing as the site does now. And so instead of requiring 1.75 dwelling units per, or parking per dwelling unit, staff is actually recommending that it allow one parking spot per dwelling unit. To give you some perspective, when you have a single family residence or a duplex residence, those parking standards are 1 per dwelling unit. So it's not a massive reduction, and we're also requiring that none of the parking be in the front setback. So by reducing the parking, you don't have to take as much space, which likely means they can find other spaces on the site and not have it right up against the street, which helps with kind of the visual aspect of it as well. So that's the one recommendation that staff has that's different than what was submitted. The zoning code requires a screening fence. That's just a 6-foot privacy fence since they're multifamily next to residential. It's just standard per the code as well. In addition to some landscaping, they actually included that in their PUD. They planned on doing that anyway. That wasn't anything staff wanted to make sure was accomplished. That was something the applicant was willing to do from the beginning, is adhere to those standard rules anyway. Overall, the property surrounding it, it's all MF29. And when you have a large block of zoning like this, especially at this level of density, that tells me there was a neighborhood plan at some point in time that essentially overarchingly rezoned people's property to help encourage densification in an area. So you have MF29 zoning, but really when you look at it, it's still kind of the original housing stock that's single family residential. So again, somebody could come in and scrape this side and put it in an apartment building based on the current zoning. So even though they're single family residential, the intention of the large block MF29 zoning was to encourage densification in the area. So this isn't necessarily out of character with the spirit and intent of what the zoning code and the comprehensive plan are looking for. The comprehensive plan identifies the property as appropriate for residential uses. Obviously, they're putting residential in, so we find that it's in conformance with that. The Wichita Places for People plan is another plan that we have that governs the established central area, which is the 3-mile inner ring of Wichita, basically 3 miles in every direction. It has a strategy that recommends providing a diversity of housing options to attract new residents and allow existing residents to remain in the established central area. The Wichita Places for People plan encourages using existing infrastructure and doing infill type of development, which helps take some pressure off of building new stuff on the edges, which require new water lines, new sewer lines, things like that. We have that existing infrastructure in the center of the city, and this is a really good example of using existing infrastructure on an infill project. Overall, staff is recommending approval. The conditions of approval is, one of them is per the revised text of the plan unit development. And all that means is on page 5, we recommend that the parking be 1 per dwelling unit as opposed to the standard multifamilies, which require 1 parking. In this area, there is street parking available. Obviously, you can't guarantee that street parking, but in a situation like this, even if you had a house or a duplex on there, people would likely be parking on the street anyway. Let's let people park on the street, not necessarily require so much parking parcel itself.
So I actually had a question about the parking, since it's on a corner like that, there's probably a stop sign near there, right? So how difficult would that be for someone to be visiting and parking if there's only one spot for dwelling units?
I mean, the same would be for anybody that have friends or family coming over and they have like a driveway and, you know, you can only fit so many people on a driveway. That obviously with a multifamily situation, there might be multiple people coming over. That's where, you know, nothing stops people from parking farther down the block, just like anybody else would if, you know, they had birthday party or something like that and the spaces right in front of their house are occupied. You know, people can utilize the public parking, you know, one block down and over and stuff like that too. So
I'm just curious how many folks are having to park on the street for limited parking, and now you're gonna add a multifamily dwelling situation where there could be more people parking on the street.
well, and the thing with parking on the street, it actually makes the street safer just because if people are walking, especially in areas where there's no sidewalks, because there's parking on the street, the through traffic has to slow down because of navigating street parking and possibly oncoming traffic to where you actually get a yield street because people have to slow down in order to let another car go by. So street parking actually slows speeds down on residential streets, which actually makes it safer. So again, overall, staff is recommending approval for the recommended language, which really just adjusts the parking standard and reduces it from the multifamily requirement to the one per dwelling unit requirement, and that it would not be in the front setback. As of yet, we have not heard any public comment regarding this. It is going to Planning Commission a week from Thursday on July 11th, so we don't have any information from Planning Commission as to where they lean. You guys are hearing it first this go around. So with that, I can stand for any questions.
Any questions from the public? Is there any motions to make approval or not based upon funds and conditions listed?
I make a motion. Approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Move on to board agenda, any updates, issues, and reports from Councilmember Glasscock.
Well, I need to have Alex chair probably longer, so I think the past two meetings have been less than an hour. That doesn't happen in District 6, I bet.
I got here for like 3 months, I think, we were doing like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we're making up for the time that was a lot more.
No, we're not.
First, I want to do Anna Lopez. Anna is the District 6 Community Service Representative. Brooke is gone for her birthday, so Anna's stepping in today. So make sure to wish Brooke happy birthday. I think it was actually the 27th, it's her birthday. But I think it's his first vacation she's taken since I've been there. So it is well deserved. I was gonna give brief updates. Also, I want to introduce Susan. Susan is, I think, the newest member of DAB. We're still trying to verify it. We just appointed a community service block grant committee. And I might have accidentally appointed her to DAB already too. So we're gonna try to verify that before the next meeting.
I may not.
If not, she's gonna be my next DAB appointment anyway. So she might just be here a month early. Does everyone go around and actually introduce themselves? So you can put a face to the name too.
Hi, my name is Gentry Thiessen, DAB member.
What area do you live?
Oh, I live just west of the airport, just south of Bonnie Prairie Park.
Susan, I live near 47th and Meridian.
Alex Garcia, I'm here at 31st and Meridian.
Patrick Colenso, West Angel Street. West Angel Street.
Angel Street.
Angel
Oh, are you an Angel Fire?
No,
Oh, just the one, just to the west. Okay.
June Johnson, I live in Mason County.
Alan Oliver, Maplewood Meridian.
Wally Bell, Bonnie, and 119th Street.
Gage Hunt, 47th Seneca.
Dalton Glasscock, by Friends University, Delano District. So Millwood and Maple. Before I have like a list of like 10 possible things I was just gonna give a quick recap on. Is there any questions you have? And then my kind of my recap. I know I'm gonna talk about the Supreme Court case. Next question.
What are we gonna do about buying that school?
So that we're voting on that tomorrow. I'm in favor of the transfer property. I think it'll probably be a unanimous vote based on public comments from all the council members. think it makes sense. So in Kansas, for any real estate real estate transaction, you have to have some monetary value, so that's why it's $1.
Yes.
It's in fact a donation from the school, but it's $1, because taxpayers have already paid for the building. Taxpayers are gonna be using the building just in a new capacity. I think it makes sense. It saved us just in the purchase of Park Elementary versus what it would be at Riverside Hospital. We're probably saving between $6 to $8 million just on the purchase price. Now there'll be some renovation costs, but up until a month ago, it was usable for a school district. So there will be less renovation costs opposed to a hospital that's been vacant for a while. I think it's a good collaboration between the school district and the city. I think it shows when government works together, we can do good things. And I think their vote was 6-1 too. There'll be some rehab for it. My priority is to make sure that we have the emergency shelter space prior to turning to the multi-agency center. I think that needs to be our first priority, and then we can figure out how to add the multi-agency center on top of the emergency shelter space. That was because of the Supreme Court's debate about this. The city's been following an appellate court decision from the Seattle area where we couldn't enforce our camping ordinances if we didn't have adequate shelter space. The Supreme Court ruled that we are able to enforce it without it. Now, your comment earlier, I don't believe we're going to ticket our way out of homelessness or arrest our way out of homelessness. This will empower us to do is for people that are egregiously camping. So you probably see them where they have 10 tents, they set up a garage sale. This will allow us quicker remediation for that, to ensure that we can keep people going. We're not going to be cruel about it, but it can't be acceptable for people in our community to live on the streets. It's not good for them, and it's not good for people that are using our system as well. Now, this will also allow us and empower us in areas of public interest around the river, in our park system, to be able to clear people out quicker from those areas, especially of public access for the most part. So this will empower us to, I think, address egregious encampments, but also give us the flexibility to make sure that we're compassionate as well. So I trust our homeless outreach team on it, and I think the Supreme Court decision allows us more leverage. So we'll be talking about this tomorrow when we talk about Park Elementary. So that's homelessness. Real-time crime center. I visited Tulsa's real-time crime center. It's what Wichita's going to be looking at modeling ours for. It's going to be our flock camera system, our gun detection system, and our public cameras will all be controlled in one building. I know I talked to Representative Hoheisel. Also, thank you, Representative Hoheisel, for being here as well. Patrick's dad as well. And Mike's brother. So I get to work with his brother all the time. Real-time crime center is going to help us address crime quicker. I think both Nick and I have talked about concerns we've had previously about how do you balance security versus a big brother approach to. How do you make sure that we can respect the privacy of individuals while still enforcing laws? I think our real-time crime center modeling after Tulsa will be able to do that. And if you have any questions about it, they're doing a couple more presentations. We had one in District 4 maybe a month ago about it, or a couple weeks ago. But if you have any questions, like I said, one-on-one and talk about it, the chief is very much in favor of it. And I was pretty impressed with the operations down. What will happen, at least what I saw and witnessed, there was a call that went out, and so they were able to turn on one of the public access cameras that a business had given access to the police for, and they were actually able to witness what was going on prior to the police getting on location. And so by the time the police got on location, they knew who was the victim, who was the caller. They could see if there was any altercation prior to them. It's also supposed to protect our officers. So if they get there and let's say there's a standoff, we know, hey, enter from this side because this person is facing a gun this way. They told us a story that they had a guy walking around with a gun in a public park near a school, and they were able to tell the officers before they got there because they were able to see the incident or see the altercation. He has his phone in his right pocket. He has a gun in the left pocket. So the officers were able to know if he was reaching for his right pocket, he was grabbing his phone and not his gun. So I think that's good technology and leveraging technology. And there'll probably be a lot more on that. So we're expecting to have that probably in a year up and running in some capacity. There's federal grant. Any questions about that? Went down to the new recruits too. We went to Black Wall Street with new recruits. I think there was 35 into the time. Looks like some dropped out right before the end. To answer your question about force control, when the chief and I had talked last, we're going to be close to full strength, hopefully by the end of next year, if we keep full classes. So we just have to keep full classes, but it seems that most of our classes are full. There's so many things that I want to talk about. Automobilia, we're looking at maybe doing that in Delano next year. It did not work this year. There's too much of a tight time frame in terms of the application process. But Delano is interested in hosting it in the future, but not this year. It just wasn't going to work for a lot of the businesses in the area. Two things the council voted on last meeting was the drought response stage. The council voted, and I dissented from the vote, but to empower the city manager to make the determination that wasn't just dependent on the Cheney Reservoir. So now the city manager can make the decision based on the Cheney Reservoir and the Equus beds when we enter drought stage 2. I believe that we should have just kept our current plan and been on track to enter drought stage 2. But it's going to happen. Probably saved the city 2 weeks. What that means for you and telling your neighbors is that if we limit watering to 1 day a week for yards, they're able to monitor that from your water bill, so they can tell if you're on city water. Now, if you're on well, we are encouraging you to still also water it, but the city is not control of that water supply. But if you're,
So the monitoring of those meters, is there gonna be more pressure on like businesses like Quick Trips, the Dillons, all those that are definitely just spraying concrete?
yes, and they shouldn't be spraying concrete already, to its ordinance. So there'll be a much stricter enforcement. The city will be separated into zones, or I think 4 different zones, and you can only water during these 2 dates if you're in these different zones as well. And then hopefully if we can mitigate a drought stage 2, we don't have to go to drought stage 3, which is a lot more egregious. So if you water your lawns now, start tapering off. I quit watering mine. I turned off mine, and I'm on a well, but I turned off mine 2 weeks ago. Luckily we've had enough rain that it's been fine too. But try to get your neighbors to prep for that, because if they're watering their lawns every day and then they cut it off, your lawn's not gonna react well to that. So, and we will probably enter drought stage 2. Car park, that was also contentious. I was also a dissenting vote on that. I think that vote was 6-1 to enter in an agreement with Car Park to manage our city's downtown parking. So now every single spot in the downtown core and also Delano will be paid for parking. Not that I have full opposition to pay for parking, because taxpayers are paying for it anyway. I had more concern about outsourcing our law enforcement to a third party, allowing a third party to control it instead of city staff. But it's going to happen. So you're able to pay credit card, cash, or coin. Credit card, cash, or app. Those are the 3. And those will be on every public lot in the city. And we'll start that at the end of this year. That'll start being implemented. So that was pretty contentious. A lot more, but I don't take too much time. Budget, last big thing is the city is facing projected $10 million-ish dollar deficit beginning in 2026, 2027, 20 million, 2028, 20 million. And so we're looking at systematic changes to be able to address things. So that includes not just consolidation of what we talked about with the county and Gardens, Parks and Rec, which is actually a little cost savings, but it's that freezing our current staffing levels. What does that look like in terms of revenue and income, enhancing revenues for animal control to be able to be more self-sustaining? We're also looking at other mitigation strategies. I will have Brooks send out our full, we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 projects. So tier 1 is, it will not change service levels at all. It's just things that we're already doing that just aren't reflected in the budget. Tier 2 is cost recovery. And so those are cost recovery measures. And then tier 3 is actually service level reduction for items. And that's based on a decrease in interest earnings. We're projected less interest earnings in the next couple of years. And so that's why the deficit has grown. And then another large part of that deficit is a couple grants that were accepted by the previous council that were not self-sustaining grants. So they weren't just one-time purchases. They were a grant that then the city now has to pay for once the grant expires. So that's kind of our complication. And then last thing, I think I already talked about Pawnee Prairie Park last time. The city voted $800,000 for security enhancements at Pawnee Prairie Park. So those have or will be beginning in the next like month. That's gonna be for the gazebo, or not the gazebo, but kind of the structure off of Tyler. We're also looking at South Lakes. Instead of pickleball, we've had a few organizations that are not ready to announce them that have looked at maybe using South Lakes at no cost to the city, but they want to use it for unique sporting options. So hopefully we're activating South Lakes without a cost to the city, but I will have more on that. And then last thing I have, unless you have any questions, Neighborhood Night Out is August 13th. And that's a Thursday. My challenge to everybody on DAB is to host a neighborhood night out in your community. So we have 11 DAB members. We can have 11 different neighborhood night outs. That would be great. So I'll have Brooke send out information about how you can register. The city provides cones, correct? To block off streets. And then I'll try to make all of them. I think last year I brought some like snacks every single one. But if you host 11, I can't make 11 parties. Okay, I think that's all. What questions?
What was that, August 13th?
August 13th, it's a Thursday night, yeah. A couple, there's one neighborhood that's hosting it August 10th, so a couple just do around that date too. I don't host my block party until like October because I don't want to do it, but supposed to do August 13th. Anybody else? Okay, cool, thank you.
Get a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?